Thomas Jefferson said, doing this to our children is immoral. And I agree with him.
As the mighty Patrick Henry said, give me liberty so long as it doesn't offend Muslims.
Increasingly people are saying, we don't want that flag, we don't want the anthem, we don't want this political class, we want the whole thing consigned to the dustbin of history.
Banks, lending institutions, Social Security, you need to be prepared for the inevitable. Now, Rodney, I tell people that the elite have even let me know that people can spare themselves heartache. What would your suggestion be in light of what we believe the elite are trying to tell us?
Well, as we said a while ago, information is key. Knowledge and understanding about how certain financial tools work is precious. And can I interject? I don't mean to be self-serving here or a little commercial, but so many people are turning to DVDs by entertainers talking about financial tools, promoting a 15-year mortgage over a 30-year mortgage and how to buy term life insurance and invest the rest in mutual funds. Folks, there is an alternative to those type of programs that are being flooded in churches today. We have produced a 5-week program based on actual financial knowledge, and we want to present that to your church for free. So if your church or organization is considering buying one of these these 13-week so-called do-it-yourself financial programs, consider ours, which is produced by a professor at a university teaching personal finance and a 20-year veteran of the financial services industry. As I share with you inside information about how these tools work and how they're marketed in a way to separate you from your money, I'll share with you how the different financial tools work and how the right mortgage may not be what might be widely accepted. I appreciate you giving me that, but folks, honestly, the best way to prepare yourself is to listen to someone who's trying to serve you and not someone who's just trying to sell a program. We're giving it for free to churches. So contact us at financialleadership.co and see how you can get it in your community and get competent knowledge and prepare yourself for what we all know is about to happen.
My dad was very wealthy at one time. It was back in the 1920s, and 1929 came around, the Great Depression. He had made a fortune and was very wealthy selling land and houses in Florida. He was a masterful salesman. He could have easily sold freezers to Eskimos. He was just that kind of a person. And he had done well, but he had invested all of his savings in paper. What kind of paper? Coral Gables, Florida. Yes, the city's still there. But in 1929, when the Great Depression took place and people stopped buying houses and lands in Florida, Coral Gables Corporation declared bankruptcy. Oh, you say a city can't declare bankruptcy? Oh, come on now, tell me, Pastor Williams. You mean to tell me that a state or the federal government would declare bankruptcy? Sure they can. Just like an individual can. Well, they did. Coral Gables, Florida declared bankruptcy, and just with a stroke of a pen, my daddy went from wealth to pauper. I mean, instantaneously. Lost everything he had. It was all in Coral Gables bonds. And Coral Gables Corporation, Coral Gables City, declared bankruptcy in 1929. I hope you're listening, folks. You don't have to suffer that. There are other ways for you to survive. And again, I'd like to go back and say, you won't have to protest with all of the others on Wall Street or in Washington, because you'll be protected, and your assets, whenever it comes around to it, you can live a normal life through the New World Order until they come to their end. And you'll find out in a few moments how the New World Order is going to come to its end also. I know that. Oh, yes. I've never given this in any DVD. In fact, I've never given it on any radio show. This has never been heard anywhere. what you're going to hear in just a few moments as to when the elite are going to get to their end? Yes, they are. I'll even tell you when. First of all, I'd like to give you America's greatest danger. Mr. Fromm gave me this before he died. He said to me one day on the telephone, he said, "Chaplain, China is the big one." I need to make a statement here that it's going to startle you. America's greatest danger today is China. Oh yes. Not North Korea, not Iraq, not Iran, not Afghanistan. Oh, Afghanistan's a problem. I understand that something in the neighborhood of 87% of the world's opium comes out of Afghanistan. By the way, just in passing, has anyone in Congress or anyone, our president, or anybody else in the United States of America, has anybody in government ever told you why we are in Afghanistan? Have they ever even been willing to answer the question as to why we're there? It's very simple. I'm sure you agree between the lines. 87% of the world's opium comes out of Afghanistan. We're there to protect the interests of certain people. Oh, I won't stay on that subject any longer. We'll just pass that one. What is our greatest danger? The greatest danger in the United States of America, the greatest threat to the United States of America today, China holds approximately $3 trillion worth of our Federal Reserve issues. Can you imagine Walmart without a single product on the shelf marked made in China? Can you imagine what China is going to do when the United States of America defaults on its national debt? And we will. What will happen? Jobs, where have we taken them? We've taken our jobs in America. Free trade. First of all, free trade is not free. No, you've lost your job. Thousands of Americans are out of job while Caterpillar took their business and Boeing took their plants, and the great industries of America, and the auto industry included, have taken their plants to China, and you've lost your job. You call that free trade when you lost your job? How about trade? First of all, it's not free. Secondly, it's not trade. We buy from China. China buys a pittance from us. You want to find out? Just see how many people lost their jobs because we don't sell our products any longer. What have we gotten into? We've gotten into one of the most drastic situations that any nation on the face of the earth have ever had. Let's just take, for instance, two of the biggies that have moved to China, Caterpillar and Boeing Corporation. Do you realize that according to Chinese rule or authority or communism, however you'd like to call it, according to Chinese rules, if an American corporation moves to their country, they must have a Chinese partner, and they must give to that Chinese partner all of their patents and all of the secrets of their products. Do you realize that Boeing Aircraft has given all of the knowledge of their technology to China in order to be able to get in for cheap labor? Do you realize that Caterpillar now is regretting, they won't admit it until a few years from now, they're regretting the day they ever went to China because now their partner has taken their patents and all of their secret trades items that's made Caterpillar so famous, and they are making Caterpillar products now in competition to Caterpillar and selling them all over the world out of China, and you call this free trade? Our greatest danger today to the United States of America, and Mr. Fromm told it to me before he ever died, he said, China is the big one, watch them. He said, the Federal Reserve, he said, Chaplain, please note this carefully. He said the day that the Federal Reserve begins to buy back its own securities, it's all over. They began this a while back. First of all, it's not Fed. It's not federal any more than Federal Express is. And secondly, there is no reserve. You think that piece of paper that you call a $1 bill has a reserve? Quite to the contrary. It's not fed, and it's not reserved, and it is not a part of the United States government. They will rent you back, the elite will, your house after it's all over with, because, well, I hope they won't. Because you listen to this DVD, you listen to Rodney Balance, you will be able to make preparations for your household in light. Well, let's find out. What is the solution? Now, Rodney, my solution to everybody would be, because I've known this for years, since the elite have been giving me information for such a long period of time, I a long time ago got out of debt. I don't owe a penny to a credit card company. I don't owe a penny on anything. House, automobile, boat, anything. I don't have a boat. But I don't own a penny on any of those things. I listened to what the elite had to say for me years ago. And I got a paid-for roof over our head. And I listened to Psalms, the Bible, chapter 15 and verse 5, where it talks about, here it is, let me read it to you if I may, God's holy word. Now, this is not Lindsey Williams speaking. This is God's holy word speaking. He that putteth not out his money to usury, no, usury is interest, nor taketh reward against the innocent, he that doth these things shall never be moved. Right. You won't be moved out of your house if you don't have any interest on it because you don't have a payment.
Well, can I interject a little bit here about debt? Because there's a lot of folks who really strive and desire to be out of debt. They're in a situation of years of maybe mishandling money or not understanding how to make it work for them. Whatever the situation has been, maybe just falling on hard times, that they are battling with debt-related issues. They have a mortgage, and even though we all want to live debt-free and to have a paid-for roof over our heads, maybe they can't. Maybe we can't do that. I'd like to offer up some suggestions to you. First of all, is in an ebook I've written, and I want to make that ebook available for free to everybody who watches this DVD. I want to give that gift to your viewers. So if you come to financialleadership.co, I want to give you that gift of the 7 indisputable laws of financial leadership. The number one law of financial leadership is maintaining access to and control over your money. Now, that's not saying you're completely out of debt, because many people cannot see themselves being out of debt in the short term. It's just not feasibly possible. What we can do is transform your monetary system, your economic system, to a point to where you have more money accessible to you and less that you're sending to other people. That's a step in the right direction, wouldn't you say, Chaplain?
Yes.
You know, you may not be able to just flip a switch and be debt-free, but there are systems in place that can help you get there. And part of that is recognizing who your money is working for. You see, your money is either at rest or it's at work. We need to identify if it's working. Who is it working for? Is it working for that credit card company or that bank? Or is your money working for you? If your money's working hard for you, you don't have to work so hard for your money. Plain and simple. So I want to help people understand how to get to the point you tell them they need to be by understanding how the financial tools work to get them there. Because if you tell somebody to hop in their car and to drive to some location somewhere, and you don't tell them how to start the car, they're going to scramble wondering how they're ever going to get there. So let's help you understand how the car works, how the key turns, and how to put it in gear and get you where you need to go. Don't worry that you can't immediately be prepared to be debt-free. Let us help you. Let us help you understand how and help you devise a plan to get there.
I was so afraid that for 3 months I didn't do a radio talk show. The next item is one of the reasons why. Please jot it down. Fear. F-E-A-R. The elite right now. No, you will not hear them tell you this. You won't hear one of the wealthy tell you this. I heard it. The elite today are attempting every way humanly possible to instill fear in every person on the face of the earth. The other day we had a holiday, and oh my goodness, it was over all the newscasts. New York, Washington, supposed to have a terrorist attack. Other cities in America, beware, more police on the street, stay home, terrorist attack. I said to my wife and my son, there's not going to be any terrorist attack. I said it's every bit a fear tactic. The elite today, and they do control the government. They control every congressman up there. There are a few they control a little bit less than they do others, fortunately. But if a congressman's been in Congress for over 2 terms, well, I'll tell you later on what I beg of you to do with them. We'll get to that later. They are under the control and the power and under the domination financially of the elite, and the elite are distilling every way possible. Rodney, you do a lot of flying and traveling around the country on aircraft. What are you seeing in the air? We are being treated like criminals in the airports of the United States of America. I'm a pilot. I flew for over 30 years commercially. I have an instrument rating, commercial rating. I have an aircraft mechanic's license. I have flown over 5,000 hours, pilot in command. Back about 2 years ago, I said, I'll never get on another commercial airliner. I said, I will not be treated like a criminal in my own country and let them make me strip my clothes off and look at me like I'm some person to take off my shoes. I said, I will not have that mentality instilled in me. The elite today, they have let me know they intend to instill all the fear they possibly can into every person imaginable. Rodney, you travel through a lot of airports. What are you seeing? How do you feel when you go through there?
Pastor, you know, before I got into finances, I was a police officer. One thing I learned in the academy is that everyone's presumed innocent until proven guilty, except in our United States airports. We're presumed guilty until we're proven innocent by the scanners or the pat-down of the TSA. It is a direct conflict with the United States Constitution, and I'm sick and tired of having to go through these things when we know the only damage that's ever been conducted by any human being in the history of the United States has been done by one group of people. One group of people. I challenge, you're getting my passion here. Yes, I do travel a lot, and it is a nightmare. In places like St. Louis, for example, you go to St. Louis Airport, there's a line longer than the building itself almost. And usually you've got some lady there who's checking your passport or your driver's license or whatever you may be using. And then you've got 1 or 2 scanners open, and all these people in line like a herd of animals being treated like animals, in some cases less humanely. And with an organization, the TSA, it was created as another entitlement program. If we wanted to be serious about our nation's security, we would have our military in there, people who are already trained, already equipped, already armed, and prepared to deal with terrorist attacks, not some large woman with rubber gloves as her tool or her weapon. No. If we're serious about preventing terrorist attacks, there's several things we need to do. First off, do away with the TSA, put our military in the airports and protect us. Secondly, pull the people aside who fit the profile of the ones who flew the planes into the buildings, murdering thousands of innocent Americans. No, I'm dead serious about it. When traveling, you're exactly right. They're instilling fear unnecessarily. Americans are not going to hurt Americans as a general rule. The Americans are being attacked by one section of a population, and that's the ones we need to focus on. If we're serious about it, put our military in the airports and let us walk through without scanners.
The elite told me. Now folks, I mentioned to you when we began this DVD that you were going to hear it may not be what you want to hear, but I think the only way that you can possibly have a normal lifestyle is to know what it is the people are doing to you. And the elite are intentionally instilling fear. As a result, the government, whom they're using in so many instances, sure, they control Washington. I saw this 35 years ago when I lived with the elite for 3 years. Every bill that goes through Washington, the elite know what it's going to be ahead of time, or they change it around. You remember the day that Mr. Fromm told me when he was still living, and the health care bill had not even gone before Congress yet. You remember me going on radio shows all across this nation and telling you that Mr. Fromm one day, when I asked him about the health care bill, he just snickered on the phone and he said, "Chaplain, that is not a health care bill." And I said, "Ken, what do you mean?" He said, "Chaplain, that is total control of the American population." That's what it's all about. They wrote the bill. They're the ones that put in the Patriot Act. And they said to me, they are instilling fear in every human being that they possibly, and they do it oftentimes through government. Do you realize that government is scared to death of the American people? I'll give you an example. Just recently I had to go to Immigration and Naturalization Service in one of the large cities in America, and I had to enter into the building. I was given a piece of paper whereby I was supposed to be there at a certain time, and when I got to the building, I could hardly believe what I was seeing. Here were tall, it must have been 8 feet tall pipes, maybe this big around. They were all the way around the entire structure from one end to the other, and on the top of those real tall pipes, it was pointed and pierced. You could not have gotten over that fence if you had tried, with those things being all the way around. Government is scared to death of the American people. You go in the courthouse. What do you have to do? Oh, you don't dare take your knife in there. Oh, no way would you take anything that's a weapon inside. Why? Government's scared to death of the American people. Why? They have instilled so much artificial fear through the Patriot Act and through all the other things that have happened since 9/11 until today. We've got a problem. The government has a problem. The world's largest army. This should definitely put a smile on your face and give you a lot of encouragement in light of what we've just talked about. The state of Wisconsin recently completed an entire deer hunting season without someone getting killed. That's great, considering there were over 600,000 hunters that got permits in 2010. Allow me to restate that number, if I may. Over the last 2 months, the 8th largest army in the world, maybe I should repeat that, the 8th largest army in the world, more men under arms than Iran, more than France and Germany combined, deployed to the woods of a single American state to keep deer hunting population under control. But that pales in comparison to 750,000 who were in the woods of Pennsylvania, or Michigan's 700,000 hunters that have now returned home. Toss in 250,000 hunters in West Virginia, and it is literally the case that the hunters of those 4 states alone would comprise the largest army in the world. And that's just 4 states. The total population of registered hunters in America today range from 23 million to 43.7 million individuals, based on estimates from Fish and Wildlife. As long as the American hunter retains his right to bear arms, America will forever be safe from foreign invasion of troops. Hunting, it's not just a way to fill the freezer. It's a matter of national security. Well, there's a town in America that proved that. It was March 1982, 32 years ago approximately, Kennesaw, Georgia, a little Georgia town. It unanimously passed an ordinance requiring each head of a household to own and maintain a gun. Not a single resident has been involved in a single fatal shooting as a victim, attacker, or defender. The crime rate initially plummeted for several years after the passage of the ordinance. Well, people must like it. After all, back in 1982, when the bill was passed, Kennesaw, Georgia had a population of 5,242. Today, it has 28,189 people living in the town. It must mean that a lot of people like to be protected by Smith & Wesson. Well, here's another one. And this one, of course, likewise is proof of the pudding. This was after World War II. Japan's highest ranking naval officer was Admiral Ichiro Yamamoto. Although he was Japanese and his loyalties were unquestionably with the empire, he studied for many years in America, graduating from Harvard University. There is an often repeated quote attributed to this gentleman. After the war, he was back on American soil and he said, quote, "You cannot invade the mainland of the United States of America. There would be a rifle behind every blade of grass." Well, folks, I hope you'll take heart in knowing that we are a well-protected nation thanks to the Constitution of the United States of America. And anybody in Congress who doesn't want the Constitution to be the law of the land and the American people to be free, I hope you know what to do when November comes around. Well, my next topic is one word. My favorite, I guess, really. Fuel. The energy non-crisis. Back about 35 years ago, the book, The Energy Non-Crisis, was written. And in my book, The Energy Non-Crisis, there's a chapter. It's entitled, "If Gull Island Doesn't Blow Your Mind, This Will." Well, I waited 35 years for anybody to ever admit that it was true. I've been laughed at, I've been ridiculed, I've been called names, people have said you made it up. For 35 years, I've been willing to suffer all that for the sake of being able to prove today that we have literally had treason. Yes, you heard me correctly. We have been betrayed by Washington, D.C., and we have had treason on the part of our Congress. And I'm going to prove it to you in the next few moments that you could have gasoline today at the gas pump for 60 cents a gallon. I said it 35 years ago. Now, I'll prove it. Here's the story. Oh, by the way, that book, The Energy Non-Crisis, and also my second book, my book, To Seduce a Nation. Both of these books were out of print. They're back in print again. That's right. We had such a demand for them. People have said, please put that book back so we can get it again. Both of my books now can be had on Amazon Kindle. I beg of you, go there. You can get it for a very small price. Amazon Kindle. We want you to have the books that tell the story of what I'm just fixing to tell. It was 1976. I walked into Arco Base that morning, and standing by the front door was a gentleman I knew quite well. I won't use his name because he's still alive, even though he's retired and in his 70s. And he said, "Chaplain, would you like to see something exciting today?" And I called him by name and I said, "I'm always in for excitement." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Come on, hop in my pickup truck and let's ride out to West Dock." And as we rode along, he said, "Chaplain, do you know where Gull Island is?" I said, "Yes, about 2 miles out in the Arctic Ocean." Oh, by the way, one of the few places anywhere you'll find this, there's a map in my book, The Energy Non-Crisis, that actually shows where Gull Island is. And oh, by the way, they actually took this off the map for a while. Now they've put it back. My book got too much attention back in those days. They didn't even want to admit it's there. Now you're going to see what the rest of the story is. Well, as we rode along that day, he said, "Chaplain, out on Gull Island, we've had a drill rig drilling out there for about the last year. And he said, we think we have just struck the largest pool of oil on the face of the earth. And today we're going to release some oil from it and find out." He said, "We know the pressure and find out the pressure of the field." He said, "We know how deep we've gone. Well, we sat there a few moments, and all of a sudden a big plume of something went up into the sky, and he got excited. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Come on, let's head back to Arco Base as fast as we can. I want to see what they're showing up there." And I didn't know who was there. But we got back to Arco Base, walked up to the second story. Those of you who know that area, you know where I'm talking about, where Mr. Ken Fromm's office was. And on the second story, I started to walk in, and I stopped. I looked inside of that room, and I think there were 7 men there, if I remember correctly. Probably the biggest, most prestigious oil men in the world. I didn't know why they'd gathered that day. But in a few moments, I stood at the door not going in, and finally Mr. Fromm looked at me and he said, "Oh, come on in, Chaplain." He said, "It won't make any difference. The world's going to know by tomorrow morning anyway." And I said, "Okay." I walked in, and one of the oil men looked up at me and he said, "Chaplain, we have just discovered the largest pool of oil on the face of the earth." He said, "It's out there on the Gull Island." And he said, "It ought to be headlines in every newspaper in America tomorrow morning. America, energy independent. We don't need any more foreign oil. We can tell the Arabs to go jump. We've got enough right here on our own soil." He said, "Chaplain, this is exciting. I have never seen such excited oil men in all my life." Well, I went back to my dorm room that night. I was excited too. I thought I'd get up the next morning and hear it on the news over the radio. I thought I'd see it in the Anchorage newspaper. Huge new oil find. Went back to Arco Base, and I'd hardly gotten to the front door good, and the security guard caught me and said, "Chaplain, you go upstairs immediately. You sit down in Mr. Ken Fromm's office." He said, I hope you haven't called anybody or talked to anybody since you were here yesterday." I said, "No." He said, "You don't even talk to me. You go up there and sit down." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Go sit down." I sat down in Mr. Fromm's office. In a few moments he walked in. I'll never forget. Didn't have a smile on his face at all. He said, "Chaplain, I'd advise you not to talk about what you saw yesterday." I said, "Why?" He said, "It's been ordered classified." I said, "Wait a minute. Ken, you folks just discovered the largest pool of oil ever discovered on the face of the earth, and America needs energy, and our electric bills are going up, and the gasoline's going up the pump, and you're not going to give it to the American people?" He said, "Chaplain," are you listening, folks? He said, "Chaplain, we will not release that oil until we have the price of crude oil where we want it to go." At the time, it was $32 a barrel. You remember those days. And I said, "Ken, where do you want the price of crude oil to go?" And he wouldn't tell me. Well, he told me before he died. Crude oil is going to $150 a barrel. Oh, I know. It's gone down a little bit recently, a time or two, but it's going back up. Whenever the Muslim Brotherhood has created the chaos that they intend to create in the Middle East, you'll have those prices back up there again to $150 to $200 a barrel. You will be paying $6 to $7 a gallon at the gas pump, and it had to go there. Well, I'll never forget that day. You see, shortly after my book, The Energy Nine Crisis, was published in 1980, something very startling happened. They fired one of their lead men at Prudhoe Bay. I'll not mention his name. He was fired by Atlantic Richfield. Now, he was at the very top of the list. And he came to me just after he was fired, and he said, "Chaplain, I am mad." He said, "I am a career, lifelong employee of the oil patch and Atlantic Richfield." And he said, "They found out that I was the one that let you in that room that day." And he said, "Chaplain, they have just fired me." He said, "I'd like to do you a favor." I said, "What is that?" He said, "You know your book, The Energy Nine Crisis, just came out?" I said, "Yes, it's the reason you got fired." He said, "You've got a chapter in it entitled Gull Island Will Blow Your Mind." He said, "You told what you thought you saw that day." He said, "I'll tell you what, you made a few mistakes. You're a preacher. You're not an oil patch man." He said, "I know the details." He said, "Would you let me rewrite your book for you so that it's letter perfect, and no oil company, no congressman, nobody will ever be able to question anything you have in that book?" He and I sat for about a month's time completely rewriting my book, The Energy Non-Crisis, which is the new, updated, and enlarged edition that you will find on Amazon Kindle, and I beg of you to get it. You need to see this chapter, because for 35 years people have disbelieved me, but they won't anymore. When you see these pictures you're going to see in just a few moments. Well, he and I rewrote the book. We came out with a new, updated, and enlarged edition, and in it he wrote a chapter. I couldn't do it. I didn't know it. The chapter was entitled, If Gull Island Doesn't Blow Your Mind, This Will. And he told the perforations of the pipe. He told the depth of the field. He was mad. I mean, they'd fired him. He'd lost his pension. Everything was gone. He was angry. He was going to get back. Well, the book came out. You know what happened? You guessed it. You're exactly right. They bought him off. Atlantic Richfield hired him back, gave him a large increase in salary, promised him a pension that would hang the moon. But he said, don't you ever give Captain Williams another word. He called me on the phone one day, and he said, Chaplain, I'm glad I did it when I did, but he said, can't talk to you anymore. He said, they've just hired me back with the understanding that I don't talk to you ever again. Well, he did later on. But anyway, that was Gull Island will blow your mind. For 35 years, it's the only place on the face of the earth that any human being ever told that story. No oil man would tell it. I was the only one. The only place you'd ever find it. I told it. I told it on radio shows around the world. When I was speaking in Australia and New Zealand and other countries where I've lectured over the years, I told that story. And people said, oh, well, okay, not happening yet. Well, it did. You ready? This summer. They did it. Finally admitted to it. You'll see the pictures in a moment. It's called the Liberty Rig. The largest oil rig ever built on the face of the earth was moved within the past few months to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, by way of the flotilla that comes in the summertime. And they're beginning to put up at Gull Island, on the very spot that I talked about 35 years ago, the largest oil rig ever built on the face of the earth. And they're going to drill into the largest oil field that has ever been struck by any oil company. More than Russia had in their oil wells that went down 40-something thousand feet numbers of years ago. It'll surpass that. It'll surpass what they found in the Gulf of Mexico. It's the mother lobe. I knew it. I knew it 35 years ago. I dared to record it. This summer they moved the rig onto Gull Island. And now BP. Did you get that? No, not Arco. Arco is the one that they found it there years ago. Arco was an American oil company. It was an atrocity. I screamed all over this country and said, don't you let Congress do it. BP, British Petroleum, a British oil company, bought out our American North Slope oil field from Atlantic Richfield a few years ago. It should have impeached every congressman in Washington. The scoundrels knew what they were doing. Now BP, a foreign oil company, is going to drill into the biggest oil field ever discovered on the face of the earth with the Liberty Rig. You know how far down they're planning initially on going? To find something bigger than Russia found in their Kola SG3 wells back in 1970, when now Russia, by the way, surpassed last year Saudi Arabia in oil production because they have drilled over 40,000 feet down, and now BP is going to drill on Gull Island. Thank you, Lord. I am so appreciative that God, by His providence, allowed me to tell the nation 35 years ago. Now I'll have to rub it in. You'll forgive me. If you had listened to me back then, Congress, if the American population had listened to me 35 years ago, you know what the price of gasoline would be at the gas pump today? Are you ready? I hope this angers you. I hope you get upset. Now you can prove it for yourself and take it to Congress. Give every congressman up there a copy of my book, Energy Non-Crisis, and tell them about the Liberty rig. And go have them look it up. You can even see a picture of it now on YouTube. And prove everything that I said back then was true. You could have today gasoline at 60 cents a gallon, America. Are you mad? I hope you're so angry you can't sit there any longer in front of this DVD without contacting your congressman and blessing him out. They should everyone be impeached. The great American dream, we shipped it off to China and India while we had to pay $3 and $4 and $5 a gallon for gasoline, all because we have been betrayed. There's treason involved here. Well, here it is. I'd like you to see it. At this point, we will show you pictures of the largest oil rig, drilling rig, ever built on the face of the earth. Right now, getting ready to drill 8 miles under the Arctic Ocean off of Gull Island, and they know what's there already before they ever drill it. Now this is going to mean a lot of things. I hope you're thinking ahead. How are they going to get this oil to the lower 48? Who will they take this oil to? Will you let them sell it abroad? Folks, you better get on your congressman right now, because I know what they'll want to do. They'll want to betray you again. Now, if in all of this you have any question whatsoever, will you please, my previous DVD, entitled The Middle East, The Rest of the Story. It's startling. It's startling beyond words. You see, I was told 3 months before it ever happened that the conflict would begin in the Middle East, which has gone from Egypt to all across the Middle East. Now there's conflict. The Muslim Brotherhood, you ready? The Muslim Brotherhood is being supported by the elite of the world for the purpose of causing anarchy in the Middle East in every single oil-producing country over there, so that the price of gasoline and crude oil would go up in the United States of America, so that they could bring in the oil fields that they already know are here and supply to the American people, not at a few dollars per barrel, but at $150 a barrel. Folks, it's treason. Please send a copy of every one of my books. Every congressman, send a copy of my book, Energy Non-Crisis. Send to every congressman in Washington a copy of The Middle East, The Rest of the Story. They've got to hear it. It's treason. Well, what are they going to do? They'll bring in that oil field just about the time that the crisis is so severe in the Middle East that you will be paying $150 a barrel for crude oil. You'll be paying $5 to $6 a gallon at the gas pump. Now, I hope that you know what to do when November comes around. Folks, this is just a suggestion. Will you please, every congressman up there that's been in office over 2 terms, will you please vote him out? They all know this. It's in the congressional record. The Bakken oil field is in the congressional record. They know what they have done. They have betrayed you, the voting public of America. I told them 35 years ago. I tried to warn them. All across this land I've said it. Nobody would listen to me. It's proof now. But you ought to know why it's being done. You could have tomorrow morning, or as soon as this oil field is brought in and the Bakken field is brought in, you could, if they were honest with you, you could have gasoline 60 cents a gallon at the gas pump. What would that do to the American economy? Oh, we want to put in all of these QE2s and QE3s and quickle here and turn over yonder. Come on, folks, give me a break. Let's bring America back to the great country that it was. Let's get back to our Constitution. It's time that you tell Congress you've had enough at the voting booth in November. It's time that you tell them you want 60 cents a gallon gasoline, and you want Caterpillar back in America, and you want Boeing back in America, and you want back the great American dream, and you want your job back. And you can have it. I hope I'm making you mad. Obviously, I'm upset. Finally, after 35 years, what I said back then has been vindicated. You saw the pictures of the Liberty rig drilling at Prudhoe Bay. Well, let me go, if I may, to... Oh, I must. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I've got one more here. What is that? It's a gas can. 1 gallon. How many quarts of gasoline is in that 1 gallon? 4 quarts. Now, let's say that you can pay $1.50 a gallon for that 4 quarts of gasoline. And all of a sudden, because we have been strapped by the Arabs, and we're dictated to by the Middle East, and by other OPEC oil-producing countries, gasoline goes up to $4 a gallon. Now, did the gasoline change? It's still 4 quarts to the gallon. Gasoline didn't change at all. What was it that changed? It was the value of the currency that you purchased the gasoline with has been devalued to the point by the Federal Reserve, by QE2, by QE3, by quiggle here and quiggle yonder. Are you tired of all this foolishness? So it's 4 quarts to the gallon. That never changed. The only thing that ever changed was the value of the currency you purchased with. How about that silver dollar? That silver dollar is $1. I remember in 1965, I actually walked into a bank. I was at the time in Miami, Florida. I walked into a bank with one of these, 1965, and I laid it on the counter in the bank, and I said, I would like a silver dollar. And they gave it to me across the counter. Can you do that today? No. You take this, and you take how many more just like it in order to get that silver dollar? What changed in value? That's approximately 1 ounce of silver. You know, silver dollar is 90%. But I said approximately 1 ounce of silver. Did the silver change in value? No, silver didn't change at all. Still 1 ounce of silver. What changed? The currency that the Federal Reserve has given you to purchase that silver with. I hope you're getting the message. We can have back the great American dream again. And your grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren deserve it. And so does my son. In coming years and his children. He deserves it. Let's give it back to him. Now I'm going to touch on a very startling subject. I saved it to last. I did this intentionally. And I hope you didn't turn off that TV earlier. I'll call it exactly what he called it. The devil's Messiah. Does that strike you unusual? Well, it did me. It was about 3 years ago, and I was on the phone with one of my elitist friends, and he used the expression in the conversation, the devil's Messiah. And keep in mind, I've been a minister of the gospel for over 50 years, and it sparked my attention real quick. And as we got a little further along in the conversation, I said, wait a minute, Ken, what was that expression you used a few moments ago? And he said, devil's Messiah. I said, what do you mean by the devil's Messiah? Now, pastors, will you please, I plead with you, will you please copy this DVD? That's right. I'm asking you right now to copy this DVD. I want you to give it to every pastor in America. He's got to know what's taking place. And this man used the expression devil's Messiah, and I said, what do you mean? Well, he knew enough about the scriptures to say, no, we're not talking about the Antichrist spoken of in the book of Revelation. He said, I'm talking to you about, are you ready? He said, in order to bring in the New World Order, there needed to be a removing of the God that made America great. Did you catch that? He said, in order to bring in the New World Order, the God that made America great had to be removed. How did they do it? They removed it from our schools, put in evolution in its place. Let them think they're nothing but evolutionized animals, and they'll act like them. They had to remove it from public life. They took it off the courthouse steps, the Ten Commandments. Then they've just brought in something new. They had to remove God every way they possibly could remove Him from American society. They had to take the Bible out of every place they could take it. I will deal with the subject of 501c3 in a few moments, pastors. I used to pastor a church. It never was a 501c3 church. I saw the danger way back in the 60s. They had to remove every semblance they could from schools, churches, the legal system, everywhere. Take it out of the courtroom, everything that related to God, and they're putting in everything in its place that they possibly can. I'd like you to listen, if you will, to Glenn Beck.
You're not being told the full truth. And you're not being told the full truth by the same people that didn't tell you the full truth before 9/11. They were nonchalant about the threat of before 9/11, and they're doing it now. The same people are telling you now that the Muslim Brotherhood and the fall of Egypt is all about freedom. It is not. It is not about freedom. It is not about democracy. It is about an Islamic state. Here's the truth on the Muslim Brotherhood. It was founded in 1928 by an Egyptian schoolteacher who, in the wake of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the abolition of the caliphate, couldn't stand the broken state of the larger Muslim community. They believe that Islam is the answer to every aspect of life, the solution to every problem. Here is their creed I want you to see. God, do we have it? It's coming. God is our objective. The Quran is our constitution. The prophet is our leader. Struggle is our way, and death for the sake of God is the highest of our aspirations. Really? How do they feel about Israel? Well, a top official in the Muslim Brotherhood has just said that he said this while expressing support for the Egyptian protesters. And this is critical that you remember this. The people should be prepared for war against Israel. The Brotherhood has openly supported violence and their spiritual leader and has just stated that, quote, there is no dialogue between them and us in any one language, in other than any one language, the language of the sword and force. Okay, well, it's a good thing they're over there, huh? And they're leaving us alone? Not so much. We did our homework the last few days, and we found this document. And you can see I couldn't really read that. We're like, hey, squiggly lines. That looks important. We got this. This is their official memorandum from the Muslim Brotherhood about the about their plans for North America. In the memorandum, it says right here, enablement of Islam in North America, meaning establishing an effective and stable Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which adopts Muslim causes domestically and globally, which works to expand the observant Muslim base, aims at unifying and directing Muslim efforts, presents Islam as a civilization alternative, and supports the global Islamic state, wherever it is, the global Islamic state, that is a caliphate. Now, Who are some of the members? Because this, remember, is their document on their plan for America. It's available now at glennbeck.com. You need to read it. Here are some of the graduates. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the hairy back guy. He's the architect of 9/11. Dr. al-Zawahiri, 15. This guy was arrested for membership in the Muslim Brotherhood. Later he went on to Afghanistan, joined al-Qaeda, and orchestrated the 97 massacre of 67 foreign tourists, you remember, at Luxor. Then you have Abdullah Azam. He's a Palestinian who joined the Muslim Brotherhood at 18 and became a preacher. Oh, and he was also a mentor to that guy. So no big deal, right? Muslim Brotherhood. We should bring him to the table. Let me show you the game that's being played right now. And you can find it in the coming insurrection. You can find it in the Muslim Brotherhood. You can find it in Reclaiming Revolution. This is Reclaiming Revolution. This is Storm. This is the militant communist group that Van Jones was part of. There were 13 members plus Van Jones. And I was looking through this the other day, and I found this. But our new political commitment to Marxist-Leninist politics raised many questions about our structure and potential for relevance and growth. You see, most young activists around us, particularly women and people of color, were hostile to revolutionary Marxism. Would new members undermine our new political unity and commitment to red politics? Would there be political differences too large to resolve without divisive struggle and destructive arguments? Looking around us, we didn't think it was possible to build an explicitly Marxist organization. And after the previous period of division and power struggles, it seemed risky to bring a new people into ours, but recently a delicately cohered group. In other words, what's saying is, we had to lie. We had to make this, we had to present ourselves as something else because we couldn't get people in. So let's see, are these tactics being used that are outlined here, and outlined here? What does it mean? Let's look at the Muslim Brotherhood. As for the role of Ikhwan, it is the initiative, pioneering leadership, raising the banner, and pushing people in that direction. Pushing people, otherwise known as nudge. To do this, they say they need to stress the need to master the art of coalitions. Wait a minute. That's what the Marxist revolutionaries said, coalitions. Again, back to Storm. Storm members brought experience in militant street tactics, revolutionary agitation, and coalition building to this crucial fight. Let me show you this. Should bring up their logo. Okay, here it is. This is the English website of the Muslim Brotherhood. The English website. You see this? Muslim Brotherhood, official English website. Look at the little girl, and it says freedom. Now, look at the same website, but in Arabic. Same website. You bring this down, please. Muslim Brotherhood. What does this say? It's not a little kid. It doesn't say freedom. It says prepare. Suddenly the little girl is gone and the swords are crossed and it says prepare. Prepare for what? Wait a minute, what did that leader say? Oh yeah, prepare for war against Israel. I'd like it to be sunshine and lollipops, but I'm sorry, it's not. More on the Muslim Brotherhood and their connections here. Coming up. All right. All this week we're doing what is really happening in the Middle East and what are the connections and what does it mean to you here. Please DVR this program every night and write down the information, please, and share it with friends. The Muslim Brotherhood is what we've been talking about tonight. Tomorrow, the radicals here in America that are operating as Marxists and communists that are in support of this. But the Muslim Brotherhood isn't just operating overseas. We're not done with them yet. We showed you in their own words that their goals include the transformation of America into an Islamic state, the destruction of the Western world. Well, I want to show you their branches or spin-offs that they've created, operating in the United States. We have the Muslim Students Association, North American Islamic Trust, Islamic Society of North America, the American Muslim Council, the Muslim American Society. I can tell you why none of these things are on the board, and I can tell you why nobody is saying this, because I know all too well what kind of heat it will bring and undue influence and pressure. I mean, I can't have any more enemies than I have already. But that's the truth. Here in America, they are spreading their influence here through these organizations and internationally. Let me show you where they are all over the world. This, again, is a group that wants a global caliphate and the destruction of the Western world. You have them in Egypt and Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Sudan, Gaza, West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait, us, and the UK. All of it. According to Global MB report, there's also Canada, almost all countries in the EU, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, and Nigeria. As the press continues to report on all the pro-democracy efforts by this group, a phrase is being used in the context of this conflict that jumped out at me. You've heard it several times, and quite honestly, it's two words that I warned you about, because there's two meanings to this word. There's the really happy, Jesus wants me to go help people, Allah wants me to go help people, and then there is the caliphate or the totalitarian government that says, no, no, I'm telling you to help people. It's called social justice. Look.
They have to listen to the people, listen to them quickly. A new Egypt that is democratic, that's based on social justice.
Defend the right of the Egyptian for their universal values, freedom, dignity, social justice.
Legitimate needs for democracy, social justice.
Okay. Mubarak just said it an hour ago. He'll be gone in September, but until then, he will be making sure there's social justice. Be careful. It can be used for good, but it also is used to mask an agenda. Why would anybody claim that anyone is masking an agenda? I don't know. Read Van Jones Group's words. That's what they do. That's what they have to do. Read The Coming Insurrection. That's what they say they have to do. Mask. I'll let you decide which context this is. This is the shill for Iran. Is he using it in, a bad one, or is this just a catchy phrase, catchy campaign slogan, or does he mean it in the good way? I don't know. There's one other slogan that has jumped out at me as well. They were promoting the January 25th, the Friday protests, and they came up with a little title in advance for them. Did you happen to catch what it was called? Friday, this was called the Day of Rage. Because I have read all about the Marxists and the revolutionaries in America, I recognize the Day of Rage. Where have you heard that before? Oh yeah, that's right. We heard it before in the 1960s with Bill Ayers and the Weather Underground. That's when they had the violent student riots in the 1960s. That was the Day of Rage. Weather Underground talks about it in the Weather Underground's works. Huh, coincidence? By the way, Day of Rage, wasn't Francis Fox Piven recently just saying, where's the rage, where's the outrage, where's the anger? You've got to get out on the streets and have riots and embrace your anger. Why would anyone, can you imagine if the Tea Parties called for a Day of Rage? What would be said? Something's wrong. Why in the world would Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn even care about Egypt at all? Oh, they do, care deeply. Another connection. Next.
The elite's latest method is to use the Muslim Brotherhood, the Quran, take away the values that made America what it is today. You say, oh, wait a minute. Separation of church and state. Come on. You show me anywhere in the Constitution of the United States of America where the expression separation of church and state is ever used. Show it to me one time. It's an expression that has been put in your mind by the elite of this world in order to be able to confuse you as to what the real issue is. So what have they done? Here it is. I'd like you to see the second. Now, a moment ago, you saw Glenn Beck. This time, I want you to see something. Oh, Glenn Beck is mild. This time, I'd like you to see a video that, as far as I'm concerned, is truly the rest of the story. Islam.
America? As I'm sure you already know, not long ago, Pastor Terry Jones and his church put the Quran on trial, found it guilty, and sentenced it to this. Now, I've said before that I'm against burning books and that I disagree with the actions of Pastor Jones, but that's the great thing about America. We're allowed to disagree. I can say, hey, Pastor Jones, I think book burning is backwards and barbaric. And he can say, too bad, these are desperate times. We're trying to make a point. The reason people can discuss their differences and not kill each other in the United States is that over the past 2 centuries, we've come to respect the free speech rights of all citizens. In countries that haven't learned to respect certain basic freedoms, disagreements often lead to violence and bloodshed, as you can see from the deadly protests in Afghanistan. This is why it's so disturbing that U.S. lawmakers are now apparently looking for ways to limit free speech about Islam. Senator Lindsey Graham recently said this.
You know, I wish we could find some way to hold people accountable. Free speech is a great idea, but we're in a war. During World War II, you had limits on what you could say if it would inspire the enemy.
Freedom of speech is a great idea, but not if it might lead to problems. As the mighty Patrick Henry said, give me liberty so long as it doesn't offend Muslims.
Anytime we can push back here in America against actions like this that put our troops at risk, we ought to do it.
The government needs to push back against free speech. Let me see if I've got this straight. The U.S. military and its allies are engaged in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. One of the goals of this mission is to bring a lasting democracy to the Afghan people. Let's face it, we're trying to make Afghanistan more like the West, at least in terms of minority rights, women's rights, and so on. But according to Senator Graham, in order to make Afghanistan more like America, we have to make America more like Afghanistan. If we want to win Operation Enduring Freedom over there, we need to start Operation Enduring Sharia over here. Yes, if you want victory over the Taliban, just let the Taliban revise the Bill of Rights. Some people are worried that Senator Graham's plan, if successful, would be the beginning of Sharia in the United States. I hate to be the one to inform everyone, but we've already got Sharia in the United States. And no, I'm not talking about Dearborn, Michigan, where Judge Mark Summers and Judge Michael J. Callahan have ruled that police have probable cause to arrest a Christian, even if the Christian hasn't committed a crime and hasn't been accused of committing a crime. The Fourth Amendment no longer protects Christians from illegal search and seizure in the city of Dearborn. But right now I'm not talking about a single city. Sharia has already replaced part of the Bill of Rights of the U.S. Constitution. Sounds crazy, right? It would sound crazy to me too if I didn't know what I'm about to say. Let's look at a few video clips. Here's Secretary of State Hillary Clinton condemning Quran burning while speaking at a Muslim iftar dinner during Ramadan.
I am heartened by the clear, unequivocal condemnation of this disrespectful, disgraceful act.
According to President Obama, God is against burning the Quran, and if you pray about it, the angels will tell you.
And he says he's praying on it.
Yeah, I hope he listens to those better angels.
A few days ago, General David Petraeus, commander of the U.S. forces in Afghanistan, condemned Pastor Jones for burning the Holy Quran.
We condemn the action of an individual in the United States who burned a Holy Quran. That action was hateful, it was intolerant, and it was extremely disrespectful.
So, there you have it, the official position of U.S. leaders on burning a religious text. My question for Secretary of State Clinton and President Obama and General Petraeus is this. Do you think Americans are so dull, ignorant, stupid, slow-witted, and scatterbrained that we forgot about this little incident?
Bibles written in Pashto and Dari, the two most common Afghan languages. Bibles sent by a church to a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan. Bibles that were later burned by the U.S. government.
Who burned the Bibles? A bunch of Muslim radicals?
Burned by the U.S. government.
Who? A toothless hillbilly straight out of Deliverance?
Burned by the U.S. government.
The U.S. government?
The U.S. government.
But I thought only racist, intolerant bigots burned holy books. That's what I've been repeatedly told by the same government that burned these Bibles.
It was their best judgment at the time. The best way to deal with it was to destroy them. And I understand that they were burned.
Why would the U.S. government burn Bibles?
The leadership confiscated these Bibles so they could not be distributed here in Afghanistan.
I don't get it. Wouldn't the Muslims of Afghanistan welcome Christian evangelists with open arms on account of Islam being so peaceful and such?
A U.S. military spokesman tells CNN that kind of religious outreach could have provoked a violent backlash against Americans in this devoutly Muslim nation.
Interesting. You don't burn the Quran, because if you do, Muslims might go on a killing spree. But you do burn the Bible, because if you don't, Muslims might go on a killing spree.
Islam has a proud tradition of tolerance.
But why burn the Bibles?
The decision was made to throw the Bibles away, and in war zones, U.S. troops are required to burn their trash.
Ah, now I understand. You had to burn the Bibles because it's military policy to burn garbage. Would you like to know what the military's policy is when it comes to the Quran? I have here a copy of a Department of Defense memorandum distributed at Gitmo, explaining how U.S. soldiers are to handle the Quran if they absolutely must touch a copy. Check out the highlighted portion. Clean gloves will be put on in full view of the detainees prior to handling. 2 hands will be used at all times when handling the Quran in manner signaling respect and reverence. Care should be used so that the right hand is the primary one used to manipulate any part of the Quran due to the cultural association with the left hand. Handle the Quran as if it were a fragile piece of delicate art.
The Holy Quran, the Holy Quran, the Holy Quran.
According to U.S. government policy, you must handle the Quran with respect and reverence, as if it were a delicate piece of art. But feel free to burn the Bible, because that's just what you do with garbage. If you burn the Quran, the government will condemn your actions. If you burn the Bible, hey, had to be done. What's this mean? It means that the U.S. government has given the Quran a privileged status over all other books. They say it's wrong to burn religious texts, but their actions show they really only care about one religious text. This means, of course, that the government has violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. They're giving a special position to the Holy Book of Islam. And what has replaced the Establishment Clause? How about Surah 9, verse 33?
The Holy Quran teaches that
it is He who has sent His messenger, Muhammad, with guidance and the religion of truth, Islam, to make it superior over all religions, even though the mushrikun, polytheists, pagans, idolaters, disbelievers in the oneness of Allah, hate it. If you have a Quran, you might want to read this verse in context. Verse 29 commands Muslims to fight those who do not believe in Allah. Verse 30 condemns Christians and Jews and calls for our destruction. Verse 31 claims that Christians and Jews have abandoned pure monotheism. Verse 32 says that unbelievers try in vain to put out Allah's light. And finally, verse 33 declares that Allah will make Islam superior to all other religions. So our leaders are giving Islam the special treatment it demands.
A Holy Quran, a Holy Quran, a Holy Quran.
This is why, even though the vast majority of religiously motivated hate crimes in the U.S. are directed against Jews, we're having hearings on anti-Muslim bigotry. Why are Muslims more important than Jews? Surah 3, verse 110 says to Muslims,
the Holy Quran tells us,
you are the best of peoples ever raised up for mankind. Muslims are the best people in the world. But who are the worst people in the world? Jews, Christians, and other non-Muslims. Surah 98, verse 6.
As the Holy Quran tells us,
verily, those who disbelieve in the religion of Islam, the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad, from among the people of the Scripture, Jews and Christians, and al-mushrikun will abide in the fire of hell. They are the worst of creatures. We're the worst of creatures. Muslims are the best of peoples. That's what this book says, and it's obviously the official position of the U.S. government. Oh, I'm sorry. Should I be using my right hand, President Obama? I don't want the FBI kicking down my door.
And I consider it part of my responsibility as President of the United States to fight against negative stereotypes of Islam wherever they appear.
What Senator Graham is suggesting then isn't that we introduce Sharia into America. We've already done that. He's telling us we should find ways to expand the domain of Sharia. Come on, folks, it's already replaced part of the First Amendment. Why not finish the project and take out the free speech clause too? So, after fighting for our independence from Britain and vowing in the preamble of the Constitution that we would secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, after enduring a bloody war to end slavery and marching for women's rights, after defeating the Nazis and quarantining communism, America dies a quiet death under the knife of political correctness, leaving us with a strange, heterogeneous mixture of dwindling American greatness and Islamic supremacism. It's a brave new world, my friends. Welcome to Sharia America, where becoming a dhimmi is a citizen's duty. Unless, of course, we decide to fight the power. Fight the power!